When I started skateboarding, there already seemed to be a good scene in Sudbury. We had a local skate shop that was well established and always busy. A lot of local curbs and ledges were already broken in with layers of wax to show for it, and I'd see a lot of familiar faces at all the spots. I suspect there was a long lineage of local skaters who had rolled through the streets by then. Some were just a few years older and still ripping, and many who had come and gone before then. Considering Sudbury is so isolated geographically, I always wondered who the first ones were to bring a subculture like skateboarding here and how the scene evolved way before I came around.
It was 1975, and I got a job downtown with DeMarco Brothers Sports, which was on Elgin Street. So we typically would be bringing in, bales of hockey sticks and golf clubs and so on and so forth. Then one day we opened up a box and we got skateboards. We kind of gathered around and we all sort of looked at the new equipment and we thought, wow, this is different. It's not like anything we've seen before. And I grew up here downtown in the West End, and the only skateboards we ever saw were the things from the 1950s, these little torpedo-shaped things with steel wheels. So it was more a thing for children, but it definitely wasn't performance-based like the high-end stuff that we started to stock at the store. The boards were definitely Santa Cruz because I was just enamored by the graphics on them. So we put them up on display and nothing happens. We put a few in the window, and that's when we started to notice a little bit of a change. On Elgin Street we would see obviously foot traffic from Sudbury Secondary, when they'd let out of school. And it didn't take long before we were washing nose prints off the windows because they were looking at these things, but they wouldn't come in because it wasn't their kind of store, I imagine, right? So, but we did have components like grip tape, and all of a sudden we started selling tons of that. So obviously there must have been something going on. These guys had boards, or these people had boards, but they weren't getting them from us. And they saw grip tape, and we sold out of grip tape. I think that was the only thing we ever had to reorder. But it definitely wasn't, the usual jock, athletic kind of clientele that we would normally see in that store. In hindsight, it was artsy, kind of, early punk kind of, young students, probably about 14, maybe, if that. But obviously they knew something was going on, and which I was oblivious to in my social life.
By the late 1970s, City Hall took notice of skateboarding's rising popularity. And in the summer of 1978, they invested $12,000 in Sudbury's first an entirely forgotten skate park at the former Barrydowne Arena. This small park had a spine ramp, a roll-in with a bump, quarter pipes, bank ramps, and even a hippie jump bar. The Barrydowne Arena and the whole 1970s skateboard craze ended just as quickly as they started. But by the 1980s, there was a whole new generation of kids picking up boards and making waves across town. What was your first exposure to skateboarding in Sudbury?
I got a picture of it. Right, I don't know which one.
Yeah.
That one? 1981, that's my first board. It's right there. A little blue thing my mom got, I think, from some restaurant. It was a KFC promotion or something.
Well, we were young. I was probably 4 years old. I remember we had neighbors up the street. They were older kids, but I remember watching somebody come down the street standing on their hands, doing a handstand on a banana board sort of thing. And as soon as I saw that, that's all I wanted to do. And I had a neighbor across the street. She had two banana boards, and she'd come and knock on the door and say, "Hey, do you want to go skating?" Yeah. We just skate all day, and then I don't know. That was probably early 80s. At that point, I don't think I was a skateboarder until maybe I think around 1984 was when we knew. My uncle gave us, my first banana board, and that was it. That's all I wanted to do. We started skating, and then I don't know. Around the time, I think, I hate saying this, but Back to the Future came out, and then all of a sudden everybody was skating.
What's that thing he's on?
It's a board with wheels.
It's an absolute dream.
Come on!
This would have been my first board, I guess. This is what started it all. The slick roll. We used to pop these trucks off, and these are some crossbone wheels that I've shaved down to put onto these trucks. But we used to take these trucks off and put them on homemade boards when we didn't want to skate banana boards anymore.
And I don't know how, but it just started a couple of my buddies got boards. There's actually these boards called Newporters. They're actually a slalom board from the 70s. There used to be an Etche Sports. I guess they bought a bunch of these Newporters in the 70s. It kind of was one of those phases where skateboarding died. So they had them all in the back room. I went there and I went and got one. So then we all just started getting these Newporters, man. Everyone in the neighborhood had one. It was pretty crazy.
When we were living in Vancouver in 86, and we had just gotten into skateboarding, period, right? We're gonna make our own pro model skateboards. And this is what we came up with. This is my 1986 pro model. Hot. It's still cool. It's cool. I got a skull on there. Wow. Yeah, this was I think this is an old dresser. We cut it up. I think there's this here. We had a flammable, and then there was an explosive and something else. But I don't even remember why we did these. Maybe. Yes. We wanted to come up with their pro models. I think we wanted to have our own boards.
1986, Alexander Public School, Mark Rowe showed up with a Thrasher magazine, and we all had little shitty skateboards that I guess I was just doing 360s. I thought that was the limit to what you did with these things aside from that and pushing. And seeing the Thrasher magazine was hook, line, and sinker right there. It all came through Mark Rowe.
My first memory of skateboarding is just out in front of my parents' house. It's an old board of my brother's that I think is back from late 70s, maybe even. I started skateboarding more seriously, I guess, probably 85, 86, somewhere in there.
So I started in 86. It was just before my 12th birthday. 13th birthday. And what started it was that my neighbor down the street wouldn't let me ride his banana board. So I got a skateboard, Barriflex Voodoo skateboard for my 13th birthday. And that's where it started.
I live in Markstay, which is, maybe 30 kilometers out of town, down a dirt road. I had all the time in the world just to practice stationary tricks in the garage. Roll back and forth, 10 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet. I was able to just do that when I wanted.
Well, I was living in Nepewan Avenue, and two brothers, Scott Pommier and Andrew Pommier, lived down the street from me, and they were into skating too. So I remember these guys got real skateboards too. So I was like, yeah, man, this is sick.
RV Odense was a neighbor down the street from me, so we started skateboarding around the same time. He had a Mike McGill board, so that was pretty impressive.
It was the Mike McGill It had some crazy snake on it and McGill, and just those colors were super, super rad. It had red Ventures, and it had some, of course, some 85 rat bones on it. And I remember meeting like the likes of Strato just down the street, because he lived over on Mackey Avenue, which was down the street, but you know, when you're a kid, things feel like forever, and the hills feel bigger, distance feels farther away and stuff.
We were up at the mall back then. There were arcades. I was up at Southridge Mall, and there was these dudes, and they had one of the first like pro skateboards that I ever seen. It was actually Harvey Odensee, Mark Rowe, and the Pommier brothers, and I was just blown away just seeing a skate, like a real pro skateboard for the first time.
Dominion skateboards, yeah, that's what it was. Dominion skateboards at that time were available at like Kmart. And so that's like, I begged my dad for like 2 years to, you know, like, please, please, please. I finally got one of those, and it was over after that.
I had a Veriflex wired board. That was from Canadian Tire. So it wasn't my first pro deck, but it was the first thing available to me in living in Eskimo. So my first pro deck though was a Vision Cycle Stick.
Somebody, it might have been my uncle or my aunt, they got me a banana board in like maybe 85, 86, and I kind of rode around with it for a little while, and out of the blue, I got a Ramp Champ. I think it was a Volterra. And then I went out and I was skateboarding around, and then I noticed that other people had skateboards too. And I was like, whoa, that's really cool. Why does everybody have skateboards now? And
I'm Aaron Van Horn. I skate Schmidt sticks, independent trucks, Paul freestyle wheels. Hi, I'm Andrew Legan. I'm going to be skating in this video. Also, I skate Hussoy, Going trucks, and Vision big wheels. We're just going to give you a tour of Gatchel. Hang on.
Back then, like, we didn't really know, you know, anybody really skated outside of, like, we just kind of stayed in Gatchel. So there was me, Andrew Leggett, and Chris Coburn, and we were kind of a crew, and we just kind of skated around.
Guys, where do you think we should go? Where should we go skate, man?
We didn't really know what we were doing. Like, we saw movies and stuff like that, and we didn't have access to ramps or anything, so we were finding stuff to jump off of and bomb hills.
Okay, on we go now to Dalky Dozy. What a reference lane.
And we just kind of ride around and try and do ollies, and like then we'd be all in boards and just doing acid drops and stuff like that. And when we were kids, like the Dalky Dozy hill, that was like the thing. Like, oh, you know, bombing that hill, like just. And getting to the bottom of it without wiping out, and like going so fast, and everybody's like, yeah, you know, we did build a ramp. we stole some like cinder blocks, and we stole like this big piece of wood, and we made this really like janky quarter pipe. Oh, it was terrible. And I think somebody like spray painted skate or die on it, but no, it was a blast. It was a blast.
Think about skateboarding. I think it's a way in which certain people tend to express themselves. That's why I skate. Let's go!
When I moved to Sudbury in '87 and was a skateboarder since '86, that's where I brought my skate past from learning it in Victoria.
I think back in like maybe 1987 or 1988, I was going to this all-boys school in town, and my friends and I watched this movie called Flourishing, and it really opened my eyes to how amazing skateboarding, you know, could be. And so the next day, my parents bought me a Veriflex Blast skateboard.
First deck I invested, we were living in Vancouver, and I got a Veriflex Blast from Consumers Distributing. You can get one or two models, Veriflex Blast or the Veriflex Voodoo. And Veriflex Voodoo was $10 more, and I wasn't having any part of that. So I ended up with the Veriflex Blast.
I lived in Hanmer, but just for that first year. So when I lived in Hanmer, there was, I guess, all the spots were kind of few and far between. But really the hot spot in Hanmer at that time was the sports complex. And they had some small stairs and ledges that were really easy to ollie over and grind and whatnot. And all the kids there were really good at flipping their boards and technical ledge tricks. Matt Tucker, Al Paquette, Sean O'Brien, and Chris Campbell were probably the good skateboarders to watch back then.
Shane Rogers too ripped. The Massey guys and the Espanola guys, Scott Sokolowski, the Yopi brothers, they raged.
Yeah, I lived in Massey till I was 9 years old. So I had a bunch of friends in Massey, but 9 years old, my parents opened up a video store in Espanola, and we moved to Espanola.
Our crew, well, there's me and my brother Jake, cousins Shane and Cameron McGregor, Martin Lee, Shane Rogers, Larry Ferguson, and that was sort of like the core of the crew. If I was to have to guess it, maybe 86, something like that. A couple of the guys in our town ordered from California Cheapskates and got pro boards. That's what started the big influx back. I think it was the next summer. Basically, all of us ended up getting pro skateboards, and that's what set me and a good group of our friends off on a many, many years journey of skateboarding.
Okay, you got the two. What's your name? Say it loud.
Sokolowski.
Okay, look out. Move out of the way so I can get that little guy behind you. Okay, what's your name?
Shane.
Shane who?
Jeez.
How old are you? How old are you?
15.
Okay, who's this guy with the hat?
Shane. Rogers.
What's your nickname?
Shane.
Oh wait, how old are you?
I'm 16.
How old are you again?
I'm 15.
Okay, what's your name?
Luke.
Luke who?
Yobi.
What's your nickname?
Joby. Joby.
How old are you?
45.
Yeah, you're real cool there, buddy. Okay, what's your name?
Cameron.
Cameron who?
Gregor.
How old are you?
15.
14.
14. Ready?
So if I like started in my hometown of Espanola at the time when I started skating, I skated with Keith Body and Scott Sokolowski and John Fraser. Being a skater in a small northern town, it's tough to find spots to skate. Not a lot of opportunities for different terrain and stuff like that. To scavenge for wood and build ramps, and a lot of launch ramp early on and a lot of street. As we learned to build ramps and work with transitions and plywood, and we started in our half pipes and stuff like that.
You could have did it.
See, at that time, like, it was magazines and then videos were coming out, but like they would drop a video every 2 years type deal, right?
Like, I mean, I remember the first video that ever came. My parents went down to Hogtown in Toronto and picked up Search for Animal Chin. It was like just life-changing, man. It was like when we saw that video, it was crazy.
But when I saw Animal Chin and I saw you could rail slide, you could build launch ramps, that's where it was for sure.
I got the Animal Chin video, and I was like, oh my God. Because at that point, like there was an explosion happening, but it wasn't here. And there was nothing here. I didn't know anybody else outside of my two friends in Garson.
But anyways, I lent it out to a couple of people, and sure enough, someone taped it. And next thing you know, it was all over town. Everybody had a tape of my Animal Chin.
I talked Mark Rowe, into lending me his copy of Animal Chin. I got a hold of it and I went home and duped it. Like you get two VCRs together, and I copied it. And he found out I copied it, and he was so bummed about that.
If it had an odometer on it, it'd be reading 100 million miles. Like that tape spun and spun and spun and spun, and you just watch it nonstop.
If you go back and watch that video, you know, there wasn't a lot of street tricks, you know, it was vert ramps, but there was like, you know, a jump ramp part, and they were doing wall rides off the jump ramp. So we all started getting into jump ramps.
I think at that point, it was kind of, I don't know, you were like a little bit of an outsider if you skateboarded. A lot of people weren't too interested in it, or I don't know, they didn't really like it, maybe.
Like skating was not big back in those days for sure. You would never see, like if you saw someone with, you know, some Vans or something like that on, it was like you had to talk to that guy because you would never see stuff like that, man. And it was amazing it was even amazing if a guy had a pair of Vans. Like, where did he get those? You know what I mean?
If you were a skater back then and you saw another skater, you met up. Like, there were so few of us that everyone kind of met up and met all the other crews.
If you saw somebody on the street with a skateboard, you would go and talk to them. You just go and say what's up, because there wasn't really any attitude or anything about it. It was just, everybody was just so stoked that somebody else was into the same thing.
In one sense, we were sort of the first, you know, a wave unmotivated by anything else but availability of skateboards.
I had a friend at school, Dax Brunette, and we hit it off right away, and he, you know, instantly became one of my best friends. So I'd go and stay at his place in town, and I got to meet a lot of other skateboarders.
I remember first day of school seeing like 4 or 5 other guys with skateboards. It was like, holy shit, there's other people that skateboard. And so, like, that's when I met Phil LaFramboise, and then through St. Charles, I met Joel, St. Marseille. For a long time, I skated mostly with like Curtis Steele, Kari Wilcox, Craig Young.
You know, at the time, it was like, if you wanted to get anything, man, you had to either order it or you had to go down to 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 get it.
I remember some kids, they would come back from like a family vacation in like Toronto or something and come back with a skateboard, because like they weren't really that popular then.
I think back then the only place to get skateboards was a bicycle shop on Notre Dame. It was called Cameron's Cycle, and they had a very limited selection of skateboards, and everything there was really expensive.
But my first board, I got a Vision Cycle Stick with gull-wing trucks and pink Hosoi rockets from Cameron Sports, and that was probably 86.
Oh yeah, there was like those little side shops, but you never wanted to go into them because if you bought a board from them, you didn't want to be that guy that supported one of the the poser shops. You know, like even if somebody knew that you bought a board from one of those other side shops, you were heckled for life. You couldn't ride that board. You're like, oh yeah, you can't skate with us.
Oh dude, and that was a no-no too. That was like, as soon as, I think it was, I met Daryl Smirchinski. I saw him skating. He was like, you know, you got that board? And I was like, yeah, right on. And I don't know if it was him but I was shunned. I was shunned for buying shit from Paul.
And then we started hearing rumors about this woman who was selling skateboards out of her apartment.
He was like, my mom wants to get a skate shop going. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe it at first.
Yeah, this is it right here, man. And we used to hit these little stairs right here, and I had a skateboard park in the back. It was a window on the side though. That was my spot. But it was that window right there on the corner. That was my parents' bedroom, and then I was there.
It was really close to Lockerbie, so I was just walking in there and then just seeing Connie with all the boards and just getting super excited to be able to choose a skateboard and have it at my hands instead of like waiting to go to Toronto or mail ordering it.
So I remember going up down to her apartment and buzzing on there, and we would just like buzz in there, Skaters, and that was it. And then she told me the whole story before on how Skaters Pro actually got the name, because she would listen on the intercom and we would all buzz in because we wanted some product, and fresh product because we were dying, you know. And we wanted to go check out, you know, this was the only place you can get real skateboard stuff.
So I was like, go to this apartment building and kind of feeling a little weird because like, this is strange. I'm going to some kid's weird apartment to buy some skate stuff and it kind of feels sketchy, but okay.
So did you ever have like kids come by that you literally didn't even know?
Oh, every single one that came in I didn't know. And then that's how I got to know them.
And I didn't even know Joel at this point yet either. Like it was like they were total strangers. It was so strange. But Connie was explaining that they were doing a test market to see if it was viable to open a shop here.
I guess we call it a test market almost at our house. It got out of control, like it was insane. The cops showed up, thought I was selling dope. We had like a photo album full of stickers. Yeah. And then, like I said, I'd have my bed with a big like plywood on it. And I'd have all the wheels and the truck set up and a bunch of decks leaning against the wall. And
you get buzzed up and you can go and they'd pull like boards out of the closet and set up t-shirts and you could take a look.
All the stuff from California, you name it, all the big names, Santa Cruz, Skull Skates, Powell Peralta, you know, just to name a few.
Was that like mind-blowing for you at that age?
oh yeah, man, I had a skateboard shop in my room. Like every night after I'd skate all day, or I'd work a little bit, skate all day, and then I'd go back and I'd just look at the product, like study it. Like everybody else, like tons of people would come into my store and they just study the product. So I think it was like we only ran this thing out of my house for maybe about 3 or 4 months, and then it got out of control, and then right away, boom, opened up at the old City Hall.
I remember the shop opened when I started high school, and I was in grade 9 in '88. I remember, going to high school was supposed to be a big deal, but it wasn't a big deal at all because the only thing we cared about was getting down to the shop.
Like, once Skadurz was there, that's when everybody kind of met everybody.
Maybe we can get in this place, man. Yeah, right. I don't know what. Oh yeah, it's cool. Right here, man. This is it. This was it, man. This is the exact same spot. Look at the size of it. Fucking jamming 250 skateboards in there.
I've never actually been down here.
One day my friend and I were walking down, I believe it was Cedar Street, and we saw that there was a skate shop in the basement of Old City Hall, so we took a chance and walked in there, and there was at least 20 decks in the window, and then you went in and then there was 2 racks with it. Probably like, it seemed like 50 to 100 boards on each rack and crazy looking skate clothing for the time, but you didn't think about that kind of stuff. Oh yeah, I'll buy these pants with tie-dye and skulls on them. And
But the thing I remember the most is the clanging of the skateboards. We had huge round racks with 100+ skateboards on each rack, and clink, 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 clink from them, they would hang, so they'd bang together all the time.
Me and Dax went, and yeah, we went down, and it was kind of breathtaking. Like, you walk into this room in the basement, and it was all of a sudden, it was like a wall of skateboards.
That's still, I think that first Skadurz Pro is still my favorite, in part just because there was so much there. And that was the first kind of like iconic skateboard artwork that was just around forever. Like, everybody you knew back then, you associated with what they were skating. So everybody was associated with what board they had.
I have a picture of my mom holding this thing and it says, "Hi, Sean."
Right.
And she's wearing a Vision streetwear, and that was right here.
My dad brought me there one time, and I was just so nervous, you know what I mean? Like, I thought it was like the coolest place ever, and like there's all these like guys hanging out and chatting, and they all know each other, and they're gonna go skate, and I'm just like, 10 or 11-year-old kid, like literally a kid in a candy store.
Man, it was great to have a shop, just some place to go. And at that time, downtown Sudbury, there was a lot of stuff around. There was a lot of, the bus station, the buses were coming right down there. And
it was the central hub, it was the meeting spot. Things were different then too as well. Like, there was, New Sudbury wasn't as big as downtown was at that time, so the buses were all on the streets. It was just, get on a bus, get downtown and go skate.
And that kind of changed everything. Up until that point, there was small pockets of skaters throughout the city. Yeah. Once Skadurz Pro opened, it kind of made this place where we could all meet up. And we would make friends from all over the city. And it was nothing to see groups of 30, 40 kids you know, moving around from skate spot to skate spot in the downtown core.
Mark Rose, I think his first job was putting together decks and putting rails in and stuff like that.
Yeah, so if someone wants a complete, back in those days, it wasn't like you set it up in 5 minutes and you're done. Like a complete takes a long time to set up, because you got nose bone, you got rails, you got a tailbone, you want spider web grip tape. It took a long time to set up a complete. So, but I don't know, I didn't care. I was working at the shop, so it felt good, and I was stoked on it.
Like the shop was like the hub of the scene for the longest time. So you were at the shop, and if you're at the shop, you had your skateboard. And if you had your skateboard, you were going across the street to the post office to skate with everyone else that was there.
Across the street was the back of the post office, so that it had a covered area that was dry, even in the winter, a lot of the time.
Okay, so you see how the curb goes down? Well, that used to be like a board slide curb.
Okay.
And you could slide all the way down and slide down. And then over here, it was a loading dock. So it was like at St. Charles, it was a covered space.
Oh yeah?
And with a drop off. And then right here was this, look, it's still there. The bank was here and the curb was a little bit higher. And you could grind it, and that was like our first transition skating, aside from RV's launch ramp.
I remember vividly one day, like I went down there and I was like, oh, there's a new dude, Daryl Smearinchinsky, man. Like, dude's ripping, you know. I remember seeing him like skate from across the street through the road and then like ollie onto this ledge and just do the longest board slides. And like the ledge would end, he would like pop out off the ledge. I was just like, whoa, man, this guy's next level. Like,
after the shop opened, there was this mythical downtown crew, and that was, you know, Scott and Rosie and Arby, and I kept hearing about these guys. It was like, who are these people?
I saw Scott Sokolowski blaze through there and just like ollie up the loading dock, backside 180 off, and just like not sessioning the one spot, but just cruising. Like just going to where he was going next, and going from point A to point B. And it blew my mind just watching, knowing that there are other people out there, right?
And Scott comes with a whole other gang from Espanola, and those dudes ripped hard. Shane Rogers, Scott Sokolowski, Keith Body, all those dudes out there were rippers. And we used to always go travel out there because they had a ramp in the bush, a chipboard one.
Well, yeah, I mean, we pretty quickly made friends here in Sudbury with different people, and yeah, they would come up, they'd hear stories about the ramps, whether it be the bush ramp or the barn ramp or whatever ramp it was. The bush ramp was really, we wanted a ramp that wasn't quite 6 feet. We already had a 6-foot ramp at a friend's house, at Keith's house. I don't think anyone's parents wanted a ramp in their yard, so we scavenged for wood. We found wood wherever we could, pooled some funds together and bought some wood. A lot of it was scrap, and we found a spot out in the bush behind Scott's place, and yeah, built a ramp. I think that lasted maybe 1-2 seasons at the most.
People would go out and party there and ruin the ramp, and eventually just decided to burn it down. there was lots of ramps out where we were at and lots of things getting done, because in Sudbury you could just go out and there's lots of spots. You could go find spots here in the city. For us to have a spot or something to skate on, we kind of needed to make it happen. And so we had built a mini ramp in Massey, and then my other buddy, Shane McGregor, he lived out in the country and he had an old granary barn. We didn't know how to draw a transition. We didn't know shit. So we basically just took a pencil and draw a curve on it, and I don't even think we were smart enough to trace the transition onto the next one we were going to cut.
Like in these days, half pipes were hard to come by. So if you had to wanted to skate one, you had to take Greyhound to Espanola, or you had to go to Massey, and Shane McGregor would meet you on his snow machine and drive you to his ramp in the friggin' barn in -40.
But yeah, so that's when guys from Sudbury started coming out to go skate. So it'd be hilarious things like over you see Mark at the Skadurz Pro, he wants to come out, he's coming out Friday. They take the bus, me and two other guys on our snow machines drive into the Greyhound station, which was, a corner store. Meet these guys, get off the bus, they hop on a snow machine, we drive out to 10 kilometers out to this farm and skate in -10 or 20 or whatever it was. And, the sessions were heated all the time. We'd be skating there all the time.
We'd take the Greyhound, get off in Espanola, go skate ramp with Scott Sokolowski and a few other dudes, and Shane Rogers, a kid named Keith, a few other guys, the Yopi brothers, stuff like that from Massey, and we'd skate all the ramps and then hit the last bus back to town, and it was good.
So it was like an honor to have them want to come all that way to skate the ramp, and of course they're good because they have that kind of motivation to shred. They just wanted to skate, right?
I think when I started skateboarding, it was kind of at that peak popularity.
As soon as Connie opened up, it basically, skateboarding blew up.
I think it was obvious to everybody that we needed a spot. We needed a place. And so Connie kind of led the way with an attack on City Hall to petition for a skate park. And so we had demonstrations and protests and whatnot.
Like basically Connie just trying to bring skaters together and trying to get some good publicity for it. Because back then, like I said, everybody hated us. The city hated us. Cops hated us. They didn't want us in the streets. They didn't want us in the sidewalks. They didn't want us anywhere.
I can't quite remember how many people were there, but people speaking up, they wanted a park, and then also people skating and doing amazing stuff, like different tricks off like the ledges around the fountain and stuff. And people didn't know what to make of skateboarding yet. I think they just kept waiting to see where skateboarding would fall into like under popular culture and stuff.
Yeah. I feel that we didn't really know what we were asking for. We just wanted something. So it kind of fizzled quickly.
But I think it all fell on deaf ears. Then nobody really cared about us enough, but they just wanted us off their property.
It seemed like a pipe dream that adults at that point would go and build us a skate park, in my head anyway.
I think there was one big demo that we did at the back of the Sudbury Arena, and it drew skateboarders from all over the Sudbury area.
She did a demo behind Golden Grain Bakery downtown, launch ramp, some Santa Cruz tees. She painted stenciled Skaters Pro on them, handed out to like a little team almost. She invited city officials down to see like how many kids came. She was constantly calling the council people, Parks and Rec. And we were always told it's just a fad, just a fad, just a fad, right? So
we had a blast ramp set up there, and we just skated, and there's a big turnout, and we just had that blast ramp, and everyone was just like launching off it over and over and over again. That's when we first started learning how to because we would always just early grab off them, eh? But that picture is an ollie, which was like, I just learned that a few weeks before how to ollie off a blast ramp, and I was just really trying to pump him up.
We'd get media coverage, but not the attention from the councilmen or people who really counted.
I remember specifically thinking and having the conversation like, well, if we manage to get a skate park, then they're really going to crack down on street skating. And the security guard problem, the cop problem is going to be even worse.
We did a bunch of stuff to try and get a couple parks, but what was amazing to us is when we found out that city council voted it down, I think it was by 1 or 2 votes, and they were going to make 4 parks. So if those 2 people would have voted for it, we would have had 4 parks, one at every end of town.
Can't believe I got busted for skateboarding. I gotta get out of here. Oh my gosh, this is insane. What am I doing in here? Look at this place. It's nuts. I got claustrophobia. This isn't for me. I'm civilized. I gotta get out of here.
There was a skateboard demo at the Sudbury Arena with Jason Jesse and Jeff Kendall and a few other people, and that was to be 12 years old and have the pros come skateboard in your arena and stuff. And well, those were like 2 of the biggest names at the time too, like Jason Jesse and Jeff Kendall. Like,
this was early on. This was probably 1989, 1990 maybe.
Yeah.
And Jeff Kendall was, we all looked up to him, I guess, watching skateboard videos and stuff, but seeing him in real life was something else. He was really good.
Jesse and Kendall came, which was amazing, like as if these dudes from California are in Sudbury, right? It was just crazy, like it was insane. It was surreal, man, to be honest, to see those 2 pros like in the Sudbury arena skating.
That was good. That was good, man. It was pretty insane that at that time those were top professionals. And my dad had never built a ramp before, and he built a 6-foot high ramp that had 2 feet of vert on it. But they still skated a launch ramp, a bank ramp, and a slider bar in the Sudbury arena, and it was madness.
They built a mini ramp for them, and they built an insane volcano obstacle with double PVC coping at the top. Like, it was steep as hell. My brother and I inherited that, so we had it in our driveway for a few years, and we skated it, and just you could kill yourself on it because it just basically shot you straight up.
And there was the Kendall demo, which was probably for a lot of us the first time we'd ever seen pros. Yeah. That was a big deal. That was a very big deal.
She rented the Sudbury Arena. Not sure how many people would show up, but she went for it, and so many people showed up.
But Jeff Kendall ripped. He would do nose wheelies around like the entire rink. So how do you do that? That's so crazy. Perry Gladstone from Toronto owned this company called Fish Lips, and he had Mike Pragnell, and I don't even remember who else was there. A few other Fish Lip AMs.
I think Mike Pragnell might have been one of them, and Trevor Amodio were the 2 Canadian guys. They were fucking ripping.
I got to hang out with Jason Jesse and Jeff Kendall before the demo, right? And Jason Jesse was like, Jeff Kendall's an amazing skateboarder, but Jason Jesse to me was like, man, I like this guy. I want to be like him.
I mean, I would come in and out of what was happening in skateboarding in Sudbury, but I think that I can't remember of like too many demos like that coming through town ever, like after that. Like to rent the Sudbury Arena in like 1989.
It was such a great time for skateboarding. That was one of my favorite eras of skateboarding because there were so many new things happening, and like every day you go out and you learn something new, and stuff that had never been done. People are just breaking ground on street tricks were really just becoming, until that point, most skateboarding was either vert or bowl skating, or if you were reading a magazine, it was all vert or bowl.
People just started building their own ramps. There was mini ramps popping up everywhere.
Between Webwood, Espanola, and Maxi, there was 5 mini ramps.
Kari Wilcox, actually, in his garage, had the first real, true, good mini ramp.
So we made a secret ramp in my friend Kari's garage. Kari had this garage with fairly high ceilings. So we built this secret mini ramp that only a small group of us knew about. It was kind of like Fight Club, like you weren't allowed to talk about it.
That was, for me, the greatest thing ever. Just to be able to go out in my backyard, like I remember in winter time, putting plastic bags over your shoes and walk out there and listen to the Ramones and learn tricks all the time, every day, all day.
Living out in Mark's Day, it was tough because if I didn't have a place to stay downtown, I'd have to go back home. My mom would be like, okay, I'm picking you up at 3 o'clock. I remember I was supposed to go skate Kari's ramp once, and she's like, well, no. How are you gonna get home? I was like, I'll hitchhike, whatever. And she's like, no. But I convinced her, there was this hill in Mark's Day, I convinced her to at least let me bomb the hill. Yeah, because I was pissed that I couldn't go skate that ramp. Like, I was fucking angry. And I ended up breaking my collarbone on that hill.
In our next episode, we enter the 1990s, a decade that brought in big change for skateboarding in Sudbury. From skinnier boards to bigger and more technical tricks, new parks and shops, and the emergence of local skate videos.